Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivardhana Kuti Gopi Jana Balaba Girivardhana Kuti Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Vanachagute Yamuna Tera Vanachagute Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Madhava Girivardhana Kuti Gopi Jana Madhava Girivardhana Kuti Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Vanachagute Yamuna Tera Vanachagute Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Satashi Shimat His Divine Grace Sabaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Hridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindigajai Sri Sri Radhakrishna Gopi Govardhan Shyama Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Kijai Vrindavanam Kijai Maturanam Kijai Jagadada Swami Kijai Yamunamai Kijai Srimati Tulasi Devi Kijai Samveda Bhakta Vrindigajai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Budale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Samani Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharni Nivishesha Srinyavadi Pashat. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, 62nd chapter, text 32. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jigrikshaya Tan Padata Pasarpata Shuno Yata Sukara Yutapo Ahanat Te Anyamana Pavanad Vinirgata Nirbana Murduru Bhuja Pradud Dhruval Dhruvu Didrikshya Tan Parita Prasarpata Shunavayata Sukara Yutta Pohanat Tehanyamana Bhavanadvanirgata Nirbana Murduru Bhuja Pradu Dravu Pradu Druvu Dirikshayatan Badita Prasarpita Shunoyata Shukara Yutapohanat Tehanyamana Bhavanadvanirgata Nirbana Murduru Bhuja Pradu Dhruvu Jigrikshayatan Parita Prasarpata Shunoyata Shukara Yutapohanat Tehanyamana Bhavanadvanirgata Nirbana Murduru Bhuja Pradu Dhruvu. Okay, anyone? Okay, that's it. The Drikshya wanted to grab him. Tan, them. Parata, on all sides. Prasarpata, approaching. Shuna, dogs. Yata, as. Shukara, of hogs. Yuta, of a group. Pa, the leader. Hahanat, he struck. Te, they. Hanyamana, being struck. Bhavanat, from the palace. Vinirigata, went out. Nirbana, broken. Murda, their heads. Uru, thighs. Puja, and arms. Pradudhruvu, they fled. Translation: as the guards converged on him from all sides, trying to capture him, Aniruddha struck them just as the leader of a pack of boars strikes back at dogs. Hit by his blows, the guards fled the palace, running for their lives, with shattered heads, thighs, and arms. So you can repeat: as the guards converged on him from all sides, trying to capture him, Aniruddha struck them, just as the leader of a pack of boars strikes back at dogs. Hit by his blows, the guards fled the palace, running for their lives, with shattered heads, thighs, and arms. So there's no purport by the servants of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, so I'm just going to quickly read the commentaries of the Acharyas. Jiva Goswami says, desiring to capture him, they surrounded him, but they could not. He struck them with his club, and they fled from Usha's quarters. And Sanatana Goswami says, they wanted to seize him based on the news they received, or according to Harivamsa, to take him away. He struck the guards with his club, just as a huge boar strikes dogs who surround him with a desire to grab it. The guards fled. The guards fled from her room or the room for young girls. Some had their heads or thighs or arms completely crushed, thus they fled in panic. Spra du druvu. So I'm just going to read the next text, which is the last text in the chapter. There's a lot to say about these points, particularly from the Harivamsa. So text 33. Tam nagapashar bali nantano bale non tam swashainayam kupito babandaha ushabrisham shoka vishada vivala vadam nisham yashru kalakshara shit, a wrote shit, shit. But so in translation, but even as Aniruddha was striking down the army of Bana, that powerful son of Bali angrily caught him with a mystic Naga Pasha ropes. When Usha heard of Aniruddha's capture, she was overwhelmed with grief and depression. Her eyes filled with tears, and she wept. So there is a purport by the followers of Srila Prabhupada. The Acharyas explain that Banasura could not actually capture the powerful grandson of Lord Krishna. However, the Lord's Leela Shakti, or pastimes potency, allowed this to happen so that the events described in the next chapter could take place. And commentaries of the Acharyas are quite lengthy here, so hopefully we'll get a chance to speak a little bit. So in the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, it stated, with tears in her eyes, she cried, Arot Sit, Vanasura was able to capture Aniruddha, the supersoul of the Jivas, whose expansion is the Lord of Shveta Dvipa, only because of the Lord's Leela Shakti, that means potency of Leela. Leela, of course, means pastimes. It's the pastime potency, so that things could take place. And then you have Jiva Goswami, which is quite lengthy. Though he was the son of Bali, who should have given joy to Bali, he gave grief to Bali. This is like using the word Mangala, auspicious, to denote the inauspicious. Mars is called Mangala. So in other words, if one has Mars in a certain place in the chart, that's considered inauspicious, although Mars is called Mangala, auspicious. And of course, Mars is auspicious in certain places in the chart, particularly in certain places for a sannyasi. If Mars aspects the household, that's considered auspicious. By the will of the Lord, he was now the opposite. Vidura asked the questions. Apish fed aste bhagavan sukamvo ya satvatam kama duro niruda yam amananti smahi shabda yonim manomayam sattvaturiya tatvam. How is Aniruddha, fulfiller of all desires of the devotees, whom the sages call the source of the Vedas, who instigates action of the mind, is the Shuddha Sattva, and is the fourth member of the Chaturvyuha, that's text Srimad Bhagavatam 3.134. He is called the source of the Vedas, Shabda Yonim. The Vedas are his breathing. He is worshipped as the mind, Mano Mayam, just as Vasudeva is worshipped as Chitta, life force. He is the Lord composed of Shuddha Sattva. He is the fourth member of the Chaturvyuha. In the Vishnu Domatura, it is said, Kastvasho Kalavrupena Kalpanteshu Puna Puna Drishto Yona Tvaya Yatas Tatra Kotu Halam Mama. Who is this person with the form of time at the end of the kalpa, whom you look at again and again and recognize? I am curious about this. And the Markandeya Purana says, Bhuya bhuyas shvasho drishtomaya devo jagatpati kalpakshayena vigyata samaya mohitena va kalakshaye vyatite tu tam devam aprapitamahat aniruddha vijamame pituram te jagatpatim. The Lord of the universe, seen by me again and again at the end of the kalpa, was unknown to me, and since I was covered by illusion. When the destruction at the end of the kalpa ended, I understood from Brahma that the Lord of the universe is your father, Aniruddha. Vishnu Damothara, 179, 2-3. It is said the Padma Purana. So all these different verses are establishing Aniruddha's ontological position. In other words, he's God. Therefore, why is it that he was captured? In other words, again, Leela Shakti. So it's presenting the apparent contradiction between him being God and him being captured. This is actually the reason all these verses are being quoted. Aniruddha Brahad Brahma. This is from the Padma Purana. Pradyunbir Vishvamohana Chaturatma Chaturvarnas Chaturyuga Vidayaka Chaturvedaika Vishvatma Sarva Krishtamsha Kotishu. Aniruddha is the great Brahman, the son of Prajuna, the enchanter of the universe. He has 4 arms, 4 colors, and appears in the 4 yugas. He has 4 forms, but is the one soul of the universe and gives rise to millions of attractive expansions. There's a lot more here. I'm just going to skip some of the Sanskrit here so we can read as much as possible. Balaram gives rise to the syllable, that is Prajuna, in charge of dreaming, gives rise to the syllable Aniruddha, in charge of deep sleep. So if you need to sleep deeply, worship Aniruddha. Gives rise to the syllable M, Krishna, in whom the universe is established, and this is the Chandra Bindu. That's a Sanskrit sign when you're doing Devanagari. It's from the Gopal Tapada Upanishad. Thus, Aniruddha is an expansion of Krishna Supreme. Instead of Bali, sometimes Bali Nam is seen. According to the Harivamsa, Bana was defeated in fighting with spears. Since he could not fight Aniruddha directly, Bana tied him up using the wives of the snakes by trickery. Vishnu Purana says, fighting as hard as he could, he was defeated by Aniruddha. Bana, advised by his ministers, then fought using illusions. It's actually very similar to Indrajit using the snakes to capture Lakshman. Very, very similar. Hearing the news, then we go on with the narration. Usha lamented. The battle took place outside, and she was within her room. Another version has Nichoma instead of Nichoma. I guess the Sanskrit words are not, accents are not there. Harivamsa says, skipping the Sanskrit again, seeing what the snakes did, Usha lamented for Aniruddha. Her eyes flowed with tears, and she cried. The proper verb is arodit, arodishit, or aroshit, our poetic license. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, to the 10th canto, 62nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Meeting of Usha and Aniruddha. So, Om Gana Tivedanda Shah, Gananjana Shalakaya, Chakshur Unmiritam Yena, Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. So, there's a lot to say here, but I thought I would read from the Harivamsa, which describes this particular pastime a little bit more explicitly with more detail, and a lot of detail, because sometimes the devotees ask the question, and the Harivamsa explains this: why didn't Bana attempt to kill Aniruddha? That's a very, and the Harivamsa, which we're going to read, hopefully we'll get it through this, explains why Bana didn't try to kill him, because he was so impressed with Aniruddha's fighting, and he understood that Aniruddha was the fit person to be married to his daughter. So therefore he didn't kill him, because if he killed him, then his daughter could never get married, because it's the Vedic system that, once someone has had an affair with your daughter, then that daughter is considered actually not as a good candidate for marriage anymore. You can't get her married. Everybody would reject her. And they wouldn't be able to keep this as a secret like Queen Kunti did, because this was known by hundreds and hundreds of people at that particular time, particularly the guards. Okay. So we're going to continue from the Harivamsa. Hearing it, the heroic son of Bali, Manasura, the slayer of his enemies, ordered his servant soldiers to kill Aniruddha. He said, "Do you all soon proceed and kill." This is before he understood that Aniruddha was actually very heroic. "And kill that sinful, wicked," "wretch who has sullied the character of our family. Alas, Usha, being ravished, our great family has become contaminated. Alas, what is the strength, patience, and pride of that stupid person who has entered into my city and palace and is ravished?" It's a very interesting word, ravished. "My daughter by force, though I did not give her away." Saying this, Bana again urged his soldiers. They issued out, obeying his command and putting on their coats of mail. That means their armor, for those of you who don't know what that means. In great anger, those highly dreadful and powerful Danavas, taking up various weapons, came speedily where Aniruddha was in order to kill him. Hearing the uproar of the approaching army, the heroic son of Pradyumna said, "What is this?" and rose all of a sudden. Thereupon he saw that the soldiers, taking up various weapons, stood encircling that big house. Beholding that army, the illustrious daughter of Vana, this Usha, began to weep, fearing the death of Aniruddha. Her eyes were filled with tears. Then, beholding the dear-eyed Usha, cried piteously, "Oh, my husband! Oh, my husband!" and trembled. Aniruddha said, "May your fear disappear, O you of a beautiful waist. You need not fear as long as I am here." It's nice, isn't it? "O illustrious lady, you have not the least ground for fear. Rather, the time of your joy has arrived. If the entire collection of Vana servants arrive here, I am not the least anxious. Witness my power today, O timid girl." Hearing the uproar of the soldiers, Pradyumna's son rose up all of a sudden and said, "What is this?" Thereupon he saw the soldiers encircling with various weapons on all sides of that big palace. Saying this and taking up his arms, Aniruddha, biting his lips in anger, speedily went to where the soldiers were. Thereupon, understanding that an encounter would soon take place with the followers of Vana, Chitralekha thought of the godlike Rishi Narada. Recollected by Chitralekha that foremost of Munis within a moment arrived at the city, named Sonita. So in other words, Narada Muni arrives to witness the whole thing. Stationed in the sky, he said to Aniruddha, "Do not fear, O hero. I have come to the city." Thus beholding Narada and saluting him, the highly powerful Aniruddha grew delighted and made himself ready for battle. Thereupon, hearing the uproar of the soldiers, he all of a sudden rose up like an elephant goaded with a pike. Beholding that large-armed hero come down from the palace, biting his lips, they fled away stricken with fear. Seeing it, Pradyumna's son, expert in various forms of warfare, took up a pariga, lying at the door of the inner apartment, and hurled it at them. These soldiers, masters of fighting, struck Aniruddha with a downpour of clubs, maces, swords, darts, and arrows. Although completely wounded with narachas and pungas, by those expert Danavas, Pradyumna, roaring like an evening cloud, was not overpowered. As the sun ranges in the midst of clouds in the sky, so he, taking up a dreadful pariga, stood in their midst. Seeing it, Narada, carrying a staff and black antelope skin, delightfully said to Aniruddha, "Well done, well done." Thus assailed with the dreadful pariga by Pradyumna of incomparable power, the soldiers fled away like clouds dispersed by the wind. Having driven with pariga the Danavas from the battlefield, the highly powerful hero, Aniruddha, delightedly set up a leonine shout. That means like a lion. Rawr! Wow, this is really beautiful. As the clouds mutter in the sky after the termination of the rainy season, saying to the Danavas dreadful in battle, "Wait, wait!" Pradyumna's son, the slayer of his enemies, began to smile. Thus assailed by that high-souled hero in battle, they, flying from the battlefield and stricken with fear, went to where Vana was. And even going near Vana, those Danavas, bathed in blood and having their eyes dilated with fear, could not enjoy peace. They began to sigh heavily again and again. They were urged on by Vana, saying, "No fear, no fear. O ye leading Danavas, cast off fear. Do ye fight again." Vana again said to them, who had their eyes dilated with fear, "Throwing off your glory, well known in the three worlds, why are you bewildered like eunuchs? Who is he, or whom you are so much afraid of fighting? You have been born in well-known families, and who are clever in fighting. You need not help me today. Avaunt! Quit my sight! Censuring them with very many harsh words, the powerful Vana ordered millions of other soldiers to proceed to the battlefield. He then appointed Rudra's army consisted of many pramatas with various weapons to vanquish Aniruddha. So in other words, he had Lord Shiva's weapons. Thereupon the entire firmament was covered with Vana's soldiers having burning eyes and resembling clouds surcharged with fighting. Some of them stood on the surface of the earth, roaring like elephants, and some appeared like clouds in the rainy season. Thereupon, when the huge army again assembled, there on all sides cries of, "Wait, wait!" The hero Aniruddha ran towards them. It was really a wonder, O king, that he fought them single-handedly with many. Engaged in the encounter with the highly powerful Danavas, he snatched away their parigas and tomaras and killed them with them. Taking up his most excellent pariga again and again in the battlefield, the highly powerful Aniruddha killed the Daityas endued with great with great power. At that time, Kama's son, that's Aniruddha, the slayer of his enemies, taking up his Nistringa and leathern protector, was seen moving about in 12 ways. Thus, when he moved about the battlefield in 1,000 different ways, the enemies saw him as playing death with thousands of mouths wide open. Thereupon, again assaulted by Aniruddha, the Asuras, bathed in blood, again fled away from the battlefield and went where Vana was. Crying plaintively, those highly powerful Asuras fled away on all sides, riding elephants, horses, and cars. That doesn't mean automobiles. At that time, the Danavas who fled from the battlefield were so much overwhelmed with sorrow and fear that one fell upon the other and they all vomited blood. While fighting with Aniruddha, the Danavas experienced such a fear that they had not even while fighting with the gods in the days of yore. Some vomited blood and some fell down on the earth amongst those Danavas resembling mountain summits, who had clubs, maces, and swords in their hands. Leaving behind Vana in the battlefield, those vanquished Danavas fled away in fear to the whatever that is. Beholding his army routed by a man, Vana was inflamed with ire, like unto sacrificial fire when the fuels are put into it, ranging all over the Welkin. I don't know what a Welkin is. It's battlefield. Narada, pleased with seeing Aniruddha's fight, began to dance, exclaiming, "Well done, well done." In other words, Narada's up there and the clouds just go, "Jai Haribol, good job." In the meantime, powerful Vana, worked up with anger, ascended the car brought by Kumbhanda, drove with uplifting sword where Aniruddha was. As Shakra, that means Indra, shines with his 1,000 standards, so that Asura appeared beautiful there, holding by his 1,000 hands patichas, swords, clubs, darts, and axes, having his 1,000 hands adorned with gloves, finger protectors, and various weapons. That best of Danavas shone there in exceeding beauty. Sending up a leonine shout in anger, that Asura, again, lion, having eyes reddened in anger, drew his huge bow and exclaimed, "Wait, wait!" Hearing these words of Vana in the battlefield, that unconquerable son of Prajuna saw his face and smiled. Like unto Hiranyakashipu's car, formerly in the battle between the gods and the Asuras, the chariot of the highly powerful Vana was drawn by thousands of horses, set with hundreds of small bells, adorned with red standards and flags, coated with bearskin, and was 10 furlongs in length. Beholding that Asura about to attack him, Aniruddha, the foremost of the Yadus, was highly pleased and filled with anger. Like unto Narahari, preparing to kill the prince of the Daityas, that means Hiranyakashipu, in the days of yore, He stood passionately for battle with his sword and armor on. Vana then saw him approach with sword and leather protector. Beholding him thus approach on foot with dagger and leather and protector, Vana attained to an excess of joy, thinking that he would kill him. That Yadava had a sword in his hand, but no coat of mail. Still thinking, in other words, no armor. Still thinking, Aniruddha, the invincible, the powerful, Vana confronted him in battle. He exclaimed in anger, "Arrest him! Kill him!" While he thus cried in the battlefield, Pradyumna's son looked in anger at his face and laughed. At that time, stricken with fear, Usha began to weep. Aniruddha, consoling her with a smile, stood for the battle. Thereupon, filled with anger, Vana, desirous of killing Aniruddha, discharged innumerable arrows by the name Kshudraka. Aniruddha, too, desirous of defeating him, cut them off. Thereupon, desiring that he would kill Aniruddha in the battlefield, Vana aimed at his head many Kshudraka arrows. Aniruddha too baffled them with his leathern protector and appeared before him like the rising sun. Afterward, Vana, with 1,000 quick-coursing and sharpened arrows, pierced the invincible son of Pradyumna to the quick. As in the forest a lion overpowers an elephant on seeing it before him, so the Yadu prince Aniruddha overpowered Vana. Thereupon, thus wounded with those arrows, the large-armed Aniruddha was inflamed with anger for displaying a wonderful feat. Assailed with that downpour of arrows and having his body covered with blood, he went before Vana's car. The soldiers then assailed Pradyumna's son with sharpened swords, maces, darts, patikchas, and tomaras, and although sorely wounded, he did not tremble. Then, leaping up in anger in the battlefield, he, with his dagger, cut off the reins of Vana's car and struck the horses. Seeing it, Vana, an expert in fighting, threw him down from there, and with a shower of arrows, patakas, and tomaras, then desiring to fight the Danava regarding Aniruddha dead, sent up a leonine shout and jumped up on the car. Thereupon Vana, irate, took up the dreadful and grim-looking Shakti, effulgent like the sun and burning like firebrand and set with bells, and discharged it, not caring for Usha's widowhood. Beholding that life-ending Shakti about to fall on him, the highly powerful Kama's son, that's Aniruddha, foremost of men, leaped up, took hold of the Shakti, and pierced Vana with it. Ooh. Cutting through his body, it entered into the earth. Wounded sorely thereby, Vana supported himself on a standard. Thereupon, seeing him unconscious, Kumbhanda said, "O king of the Dandavas, why do you disregard this rising enemy? We see this hero." Wait a second. Whoops. Has gained his aim and is impassionate. Resorting to your illusory prowess, fight with him, or else he will not be slain. Do not disregard such an enemy out of indulgence. Save yourself and us by virtue of your illusory power. If you cannot defeat him by your illusory power, forsooth, he will kill all the Asuras. Kill him, O hero, before he destroys all of us. Killing hundreds of others, he will carry away Usha. Excited at these words of Kumbhanda, the king of the Dandavas, the foremost of speakers, filled with anger, gave vent to the following harsh words. "I will kill him in the battle. I will catch him as Garuda catches a serpent." Saying this, the powerful Vana, with his chariot, standard, and his horses resembling the king, the city, of Gandharvas, disappeared thereupon from showering sharpened arrows, covered him with them. Seeing Vana invisible, the unconquerable son of Pradyumna, imbued with manliness, cast his looks at the 10 quarters. Thereupon, resorting to his Kamasic learning and covering with illusory form that highly powerful Danava, filled with anger, he began to discharge sharpened arrows. Gradually, Pradyumna's son was fettered with serpentine shafts. In other words, he had arrows all over his body. His body was chained with various serpents. Thus, with all of his limbs bound with serpents, Pradyumna's son stood inert like the Mount Mainaka in the battle. Although motionless like a mountain, encircled by serpents of burning fangs, he was not stricken with fear. Although completely fettered with serpentine shafts and rendered inactive and motionless, that one, identical with all, did not experience the least pain. That's a hero for you. Thereupon, supporting himself on a standard, so in other words, Vana had actually captured him at this point, filled with anger, remonstrated with Aniruddha in harsh words and said, "O Commander, kill soon this sinful wretch of a family, having a vitiated soul who has sullied our character in the world." Thus addressed, Kumbhanda said, "O king, I wish to speak a few words. Hear them if you wish. Whose son is this hero imbued with the prowess of Indra? Learn first from where he has come, and who has brought him here. O king, when he fought in the great battle, I marked him fighting like a celestial prince. He is powerful, imbued with energy." So, there's a lot more here. So, in other words, there's a description of the great prowess of Aniruddha here, and then Vana becomes convinced that, not to kill him, just to capture him at this point, just to find out who he is. And there's a lot more here. We don't have time, so we just have one more minute before greeting the deities. Any questions or comments about any of these points? Very exciting. Here's a very, very exciting story here. And it's good to have all these details. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So another point is, after greeting the deities, someone else is going to have to lead the kirtan because I have a emergency GBC meeting. Really laugh. Greeting the deities.
Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Taksham Bharavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Asa Sakale Driya Vriti Manti Pasyan Vipan Vikayan